More than 3 million men, women, and children perished, not because of drought, not because of natural disaster, but because of policy, indifference, and empire. This is the story of the Great Bengal Famine of 1943, a tragedy that revealed the darkest side of colonial rule, and the enduring resilience of the human spirit. Fade in black and white photos, skeletal villagers, long queues for rice, British soldiers marching past starving civilians. Bengal before the storm scene transitions to rural Bengal, lush green paddy fields swaying under monsoon skies. Before 1943, Bengal was known as the Rice Bowl of India. Its fertile deltas of the Ganges and Brahmaputra produced abundant harvests, enough to feed tens of millions. But beneath that prosperity lay a fragile system, one dependent on the rhythms of the monsoon and the dictates of the colonial economy. Monsoon rain, market chatter. Peasants toiled endlessly, bound by debt to landlords. Most of Bengal's rice was controlled by middlemen, merchants who stored grain to sell at profit. When the war began in 1939, Bengal's economy shifted overnight. Rice, boats, and transport were requisitioned for the British war effort. Prices began to rise. And the people of Bengal, already poor, became dangerously vulnerable. British propaganda posters calling for war support in India. In 1942, when Japan conquered Burma, a vital rice supplier, Bengal lost its main import source. Within months, food prices soared by more than 300%. The seeds of famine were sown. The Empire's priorities: British War Office, Calcutta. Papers shuffled, officers discussing logistics. Voice actor, British officer, we must secure the Eastern Front. No boats, no transport, they could fall into enemy hands. This was known as the boat denial policy. To prevent a possible Japanese invasion from Burma, the British administration ordered thousands of boats to be destroyed or confiscated along Bengal's coastline. For millions of fishermen and traders, boats were not just property, they were lifelines. Without them, food could not be moved from surplus areas to those in need. Fire, villagers crying, boats burning on riverbanks. At the same time, the British launched a rice denial policy. Rice stocks were seized in coastal districts to prevent them from aiding the enemy. But the real enemy, as history would show, was not Japan, it was hunger. Scene shifts to London, Winston Churchill's cabinet room. Churchill, archival voice actor, if food is scarce, why hasn't Gandhi died yet? Prime Minister Winston Churchill's infamous remark would come to symbolize the cold indifference of imperial policy. When the Bengal government pleaded for grain imports, Churchill's war cabinet refused, prioritizing European troops and stockpiles in the Mediterranean. Millions of tons of wheat sat in Australian warehouses, never shipped to Bengal. Ships passed through Indian ports, full of food, but none were unloaded. Historian, interview clip style, Churchill believed India should pay for its own defense. He saw the famine as a problem of mismanagement, not of imperial neglect. Collapsed Calcutta streets, 1943, chaos, crowd noise, hunger cries. By early 1943, food prices had spiraled out of control. Rice that once cost 6 rupees a mon now sold for 40. Villagers sold everything, land, jewelry, even their homes, to buy a handful of rice. Crying child, empty bowl. Villager, we boiled grass. We ate leaves. Then, nothing was left. As starvation spread, families migrated to Calcutta, the city of hope. But what awaited them was horror. The government, fearing disease and unrest, set up feeding camps. But supplies were minimal, and corruption rampant. Eyewitness, voice actor, drawn from Amartya Sen's historical accounts, every morning, bodies lay by the roadside. The living walked among the dead. Archival photos of emaciated figures on Calcutta streets. Disease followed hunger. Cholera, dysentery, malaria, all claimed lives faster than food could save them. The death toll mounted, but official records were censored. Even newspapers were forbidden to use the word famine. When journalists tried to expose the truth, British authorities silenced them, claiming reports would damage morale. Yet brave photographers, like Sunil Jana and Margaret Burke-White, captured the haunting images that the world could not ignore. Voices of resistance. Indian National Congress Office. While the British denied responsibility, Indian leaders cried out. Mahatma Gandhi, Jawaharlal Nehru, and Subhas Chandra Bose condemned the government's apathy. Nehru: this famine is man-made, born not of drought, but of greed and neglect. Underground movements like the Bengal Relief Committee and local volunteers tried to distribute food and medicine. But their efforts were overwhelmed by scale. Women cooking, children lining up for food. Ordinary citizens, teachers, doctors, monks, risked their lives to help. Stories emerged of kindness in chaos, a boatman ferrying rice across flooded fields, a widow feeding orphans though she herself starved. These were Bengal's unsung heroes. The human cost aerial map of Bengal, red dots spreading, representing famine deaths. By the end of 1943, famine had engulfed the countryside. Entire villages vanished. Mothers left infants at railway stations, hoping someone, anyone, might feed them. The estimated death toll reached 3.1 million. Some scholars say it could have been far higher. Historians, it wasn't the failure of crops, it was the failure of compassion. The famine's effects rippled through generations, in trauma, in poverty, and in mistrust of empire. It became a turning point in India's struggle for independence. Aftermath and legacy post-war footage, 1945 London, India gaining independence. In the years that followed, Britain's wartime policies faced scrutiny, but few were ever held accountable. The official inquiry minimized blame, calling it a tragic consequence of war. But history remembers differently. No famine has ever occurred in a functioning democracy. Freedom of information, and public accountability, saved lives. The Great Bengal Famine reshaped the way the world understood hunger, not as an act of nature, but as a failure of governance. Today, it remains one of the deadliest, and least acknowledged, famines in modern history. Sunset over Bengal's rivers, villagers harvesting rice once a. 80 years later, the ghosts of 1943 still linger, in stories whispered by survivors, in faded photographs, in memories of rice fields once silent. The famine of Bengal was not an accident. It was a warning of what happens when power forgets humanity. From ashes of despair, Bengal rose again. But the hunger for justice and remembrance remains.